episode of Pause on Point. We're doing another tag team episode today with me and Ellie. We're going to be covering why does AnyTube suck? Konosuba, Kobayashi, and Corrupt Standards.
Ooh,
this
corruption.
is a very recent video on time of recording. I think it came out this week. It dropped into my sub box. I watched it and was like, yeah, we got to cover this shit because we love that. We love that YouTuber drama bullshit, don't we?
It's what's this channel thrives on.
Yes. So yeah, this is a very interesting video because this dude, a bit of backstory. I followed this dude because he was doing a project which was revolving around Ruby, where he was trying to fix it. And he actually had a lot of really good ideas in terms of the story and the world building. However, it apparently all fell apart because he made it an open community project. And it kind of devolved into people... I wasn't directly involved, but it devolved into people like mods being Nazis and not letting people add things to canon. And it went the way a lot of community projects tend to go, where shit just falls to pieces. And it's really sad because his work on it was really good, and I think he deleted those videos, which is also a shame. I wish he didn't do that because
my involvement
really
with
good.
this channel is none whatsoever. Never heard of the guy until this video.
Yeah, well, I used to follow him for the Ruby content. You can still find some of the songs that they made for it. The one which was Sisters was really fucking good, but we're gonna be ripping him a new asshole today. So. Right, let's get right into it then. So, why does AnyTube suck?
Do the countdown.
1, 2, 3, go.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
It might seem damning for me to make a spiteful video like this after watching a project hemorrhage in views and also collapse, but believe me, I've had these thoughts for a very long time.
Something I will note is that he does this thing where he flashes a lot of stuff on screen.
Yeah,
really quickly.
It's going to be a pain to get the visuals in sync with this video. I might have to do some hard editing to have it in view.
To get it working. And it's a problem because he flashes a lot of stuff that's apparently connected to his argument, as well as just some really interesting references, such as I believe in one part of that spiel there was that one fairy dragon that's been saying some crazy shit lately, and it's a very obnoxious style, and I have a feeling that was his point, because I'm still 50-50 on this being a parody. I'm not sure yet, but let's keep going.
About here, actually.
Not to impose, but when I found you guys, you were all masturbating to a rock.
It's false. No way. No. It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication. It's false. It never happened. It's fiction. No way. Not a chance. It never happened. It's fiction. Wrong. You're wrong. It never happened.
And I'm not sure this will really have any impact given the size of my channel, but I'll just start talking and maybe you'll keep watching. Not to impose, but 12 million is a pretty big number.
Every day I'm shuffling.
Oh!
Well, we have 9 at this point, so...
Yeah, it's an interesting style he's got.
Yeah, all this editing must have taken a lot of work.
It's interesting how it's a lot of editing for very little payoff. I like my memes, I like my jokes, right? But it's not really helping the video a lot. Not gonna lie. So let's keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, do you think you could elaborate?
They sucked his brains out.
I acknowledge that statement as completely subjective. I don't know how bad things can really get anymore because we're always trapped in this feeling of nostalgia for yesterday.
That image that he flashed was Demolition's what's it called?
Died.
Yeah, lizards, general.
His iguana, I think.
Iguana, that's what I
Yeah, his iguana died. It was very sad. I miss Demo. I wish Demo would
Well,
come back
he still streams and stuff, but yeah, he hasn't done anything.
He does still stream. I've caught a few of his streams. They're still quite funny, but it's sad that he's no longer doing videos. Maybe one day we'll go back. We'll watch some of Demo's videos. We can do that as like a nostalgic episode where we go back and watch Demo and just laugh for the whole episode.
It's very possible.
Yeah. So, in terms of what we're looking at right now, I don't know. I've seen a bit of this WoW streamer. He likes to watch YouTube videos while he streams, and I'm not sure how it's related, but okay.
Well, I think it's in reference to you can't really see it, but his title is "Make Azeroth Great Again," which is kind of a reference to the things were better yesterday.
Yeah. Alright, let's keep going.
Regardless of what it was like. But among a few other things, I can't remember a time where I respected, indulged, or even really acknowledged AnyTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't see it now, but except Goblin Slayer, because there was interesting things that happened there. Videos.
Okay. Except maybe I've got it. Is it up on your screen?
No, it isn't. If you can recite it.
Let me pull it back. Okay, fine. Because I was going to bring it up for video's sake, but it doesn't matter. He says in his see, this is what I hate. I hate it when people do this quickly flash shit up. I want to actually read what your argument is. Don't fucking do this shit. Except maybe the Goblin Slayer video, and also that one time I made fun of Gigkara's dumb number system, which I believe is in reference to Arcada's old numerical bullshit that he used to use in his reviews to try and determine like what his score was, which I always did find a little bit retarded because it was completely fucking arbitrary and didn't really fucking matter to begin with. And I don't know this guy's Goblin Slayer video, so...
Yeah, so he interacted with AnyTube 2 times, which isn't a lot, so you can still claim you're outside.
Which isn't a lot, yeah.
We can still claim we're outside of AnyTube, because we don't have really real interactions with AnyTube.
Well, you say that.
Yeah, maybe in my case it's a little different, but not really as a YouTube relationship.
Yeah. And the thing is I think I quite like the for the shit that anime outsiders get, right? One thing that I know that the people in there agree with and have said multiple times when I was more active in the server, there are no good anime tubers, no exceptions.
Well, no exceptions. Don't diss on my boy.
I'm fucking with you, don't worry. Yeah, but that's the thing, right, is that a lot of anti-tubers... This is the thing, a lot of anti-tube is shit. But...
Well, a lot of YouTubers in general.
Yeah.
Us included.
So it's... Yeah, included us, yeah. But, let's keep going.
Portion of YouTube's vast audience that watches anime-themed content. The variety this portion has to offer ranges from smaller content like clips and trailers to longer and more personalized material like commentaries, reviews, analyses, and sometimes just straight-up reactions. And then there's this.
If you sat in a puddle of your own piss long enough, would your leg disintegrate?
Caught somewhere in the middle is the corpse of parody culture, abridged series, AMVs, one-shots, edits, and what many would misconstrue as shitposts because people are afraid of calling it a joke or a meme, and shitpost sounds cruder and more modern, which just equates to people wanting to be as edgy and antagonistic as 4chan in this post-Gamergate realm of interconnectedness.
Now all of China knows you're here.
But enough with the big words, you
Can I just take a minute to just take that in?
Who's mad?
Ooh, that was interesting. Because he's throwing a lot of shit out in that
yeah, I
section.
don't.
But he's not. But it's really weird because it doesn't seem like he's taking a stance on any of it. He's just kind of being like, well,
everybody's
calling
shit.
it a shit post. Yeah, they're calling it a shit post when they could just call it a joke. They're only calling it a shit post because it's edgy. I'm
slightly disagreeing with his what is AnyTube? What is the community of AnyTube? I wouldn't include the trailers or the FMVs or the memesters. I wouldn't include those really in AnyTube. I consider AnyTube more of the essay.
It's more
people.
of the reviewers, the
reviewers and the essays,
and analyst. Yeah, I wouldn't count, because the thing is I believe one of the things for AnyTube is you have a personality, right? That's kind of where it comes from, because it's the same with gaming YouTubers, right? You come to, if you're going to a shitpost channel, you're going there for shitposts and lols, right? You're not going there for the person who runs the channel. The person who runs the channel is secondary to the content, whereas with AnyTube, you watch a Gigic video because you want to watch a Gigic video. You watch a Mother's Basement video because you're sadly retarded. Right? Okay.
Nah, don't be too
I know. I had to get at least one out. But that's what I mean, right? Is you go to AnyTubers because of the personality the AnyTuber has, not necessarily due to the you also go there for the review and the content of the material, but 9 times out of 10 it's the cult of personality that drives people to follow said YouTuber, right? Digibro is actually a really good example of this, because his entire YouTube persona / career is built on top of his personality, right?
Well, yeah, I can also name Lost Boss. I've seen like 2 videos of him, and he's just all about the memes, basically funny videos.
Yeah, but he also has the personality of Lost Paws, right?
Yeah,
he has his own, like, it's like PewDiePie, right? PewDiePie's similar. He has the memes, right? He does the meme review, he does all that shit, but people go to him because of his persona and his personality, and it attracts people that enjoy that kind of content. So I think that in order to be, like, if it was just a meme channel where he just posted memes without him giving the little quips and the like jokes and stuff, then I wouldn't consider it to be like a tuber thing. It would just be a meme compilation channel, right?
Yeah, and just to get back to this subject a little bit, I don't think he, in this small funny bit, this video hasn't really established what he means by the AnyTube community.
Yeah, because he could just be talking about the anime community as a whole, rather than just AnyTubers. I don't see. Maybe he'll get into it, because we're only like 2 minutes in out of the 10. There's 10 minutes left. He might get into it, but I feel like his problems extend a little bit more than just AnyTube, and he's just using AnyTube as a selling stick.
As a public-facing entity.
Yeah, he's trying to use that as his example to try and drag people in, because obviously people get, the drama within the anime community is quite well established to be a very driving force within it, so I can understand wanting to use that to drive your views a little. So,
yeah, let's get further.
Yeah, let's see where he goes.
Fucking Nazi, why the Chinese cartoons fan bad? Well, let me frame my reasoning with this, because I think perspective matters. And this may shock you, given the content of my channel, but I'm not the biggest fan of anime.
Alright.
Sure.
Something I want to bring up, and it's a criticism that, because I've been watching, because Unknown Otaku have been interacting with this guy who was criticizing one of ER's videos about Steven Universe. Some guy called Bacon Fist or some shit. I don't know. He's some streamer, right, who reacts to videos or something on his Twitch channel. And one of the criticisms he brought up against ER's video, which I don't think is actually valid in ER's video, but is valid here, is the idea of loud is funny, right? The idea that instead of having an actual joke or a point that makes people laugh, you just have something really loud, and that makes people laugh. That's what I feel like this whole thing is right here, right? This
and
thing
in the beginning
where
the over, how do you call it? How do you say it even when you're over boosting your volume?
Yeah.
The meme of boosting your audio to 500%.
Bass boost. Yeah, bass boost,
etc.
Something like that. I'm not an audio dude. I don't know.
Me neither.
But this is what I mean. It's the idea of loud equals funny, and I think that he's taking that quite literally in this video.
Well, I think he's just copying. He's copying the memes.
Yeah, which isn't really helping. It's not helping the argument of the video, and again, it's why it's really hard to tell if he's being serious
but
or
I
not.
do wonder what he's going to say about he's not really a fan, so
yeah.
Of course, non-fans' perspectives are also valuable, but
yeah, I don't necessarily have an issue if he's not an anime fan, or if he's only like an normie-ish
casual fan.
Casual. I don't actually think that that's a criticism against his points or anything. I think it actually makes it a little bit more interesting because he's giving an outsider's perspective. So let's see where he goes with his current loud is funny argument.
I don't go to conventions, I don't buy merch, I don't even get the DVDs. I got this Miku figurine once because it was like $30 and it was Christmas, and I also owned the first volume of Berserk. But that's about it. If someone recommends me a show, I'll be like, yeah, I'll check it out, and then I won't because like
that isn't really much.
That does, yeah, and again, I don't really think it matters how much YouTuber. This is a point in time when I was poor as fuck. I didn't have a whole lot, but I still watched a fuckload of it. Like it's not. I find it very interesting how he is conflating the idea of owning a lot of anime-related memorabilia to being an anime fan. I don't think that you necessarily need to go to conventions or need to own figurines like I do, right? I have
yeah, but I do. There is a kind of building of a library, and if you just all have it ethereal, just having you have it pass it through you with no grasp on it, then I think you lose some of the the opportunities to analyze it or read it really in your own times. If it's only ever streaming and it goes away and you never see it again, or if you don't have a library of sort with no place to fall back on, I think you have a much harder time appreciating it.
Yeah, I feel I can get that point. It's just that I believe that the idea that you require physical merch to be able to...
merch. I don't think merch really matters. I think it's far more important that you own or have the stories at hand.
So DVDs, physical medium, books, right? Because I have a bunch of volumes of manga. I have to get around to reading them. Actually, I also have
I wouldn't say if somebody was, let's say, really into philosophy or really into the science, but he only watched Discovery Channel videos and only, I don't know, read the online articles. I would expect, if you are into science or into philosophy or something, that you at least read or owned a book that you can go back to read it again sometime. Or
so what you're saying is, I'm doing a Katie Griffin. What you're saying is, you should read Locke.
Well, if you're into, I guess, philosophy or
it's a Sargon joke. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You need to own rules for radicals.
Sure, if you want to read upon revolutionary ideas and how societies work, I guess. I don't know.
I'm just fucking around. Don't worry.
Sure, but if you have an interest in those things and you don't own own those books, I don't think you're. Let's say you can always call yourself a fan, but I don't think you'll get the same appreciation of it.
Right. It's interesting because we're moving into a digital age, right? Where physical medium is becoming less and less important.
I never use Crunchyroll in any way, but I don't think I don't think you don't own the media, which is fine. But do you have your own library of stuff?
Well, with Crunchyroll, you have Crunchyroll's library that they decide to arbitrarily give to you because of region locking and shit. But there is a magical thing called torrenting, and if you torrent, you get what's called a file, and it can stay.
Is this illegal?
It could be very regal. It could be very regal. Okay, but the point is that you get a file that you can keep on your, physical medium of your hard drive, which you can.
I think we might need to disavow this.
Disavow the piracy, but this is what I mean, right? We're moving into a more, for better or worse, we're moving into this kind of digital landscape. Where,
sure. I don't. Little joking aside, I don't think you have to own physical media per se. If you have something of a, I believe there is also manga subscriptions where you can have your own little library of manga. If you can,
I think Jump does that.
Yeah, if you have a library of sorts which you can go back to read it again or read a specific chapter of some kind. I will repeat myself for the last time. I think you have a better appreciation of it.
Alright, no, that's fair enough. So yeah, let's keep going because I have a feeling this is going to start to get really good.
Care more about restoring the Roman Empire as Byzantium, you understand I have more important things to do than waste valuable Byzantium time watching a flavor of the season type show, only to forget it immediately afterwards because Roma Victor. My point is, I'm not that into anime, and when I am, I tend to watch it outside of the context of the medium, which is why I'm probably the only person alive to be extremely grossed out by the fact that a popular kyoani show in the West has a scene where they bait two underage girls getting ready to have sex. And I'm not even gonna try debating the ethics.
Oh, you ready?
It sounds like the main argument.
Yeah. So I want to go. So his first point, I found it very interesting how he says he watches anime out of context, right? Out of the context of, I'm assuming he means the fandom / cultural zeitgeist. I believe is what he means.
Yeah.
By that.
I think that's
I
accurate.
find that to be a very interesting statement. Primarily due to the fact that I feel like that actually could be a very interesting perspective to explore. The idea of having someone who's watched stuff out of the context of the cultural zeitgeist. However, I believe his conclusions of such things, as we were about to get into right the fuck now, are not the best.
Yeah, you always watch or always consume media in a context. You don't. It's impossible to separate all contexts from something you read or watch or play even.
And I feel like,
and by placing it outside of the Japanese anime otaku culture context, you are placing it in another context. Maybe it's just the, I don't know, American, Western, more American
Western morals. Could just be his own personal preference, context as well. So there's that. However, I find it because we're not gonna be able to avoid the lolly debate much longer. We're gonna have to get into that at some point. But I reckon we'll let him go off for a little bit more and see what he has to say. and then we'll see if we can find a good point to get into it, because I think that's gonna be very interesting.
Yep.
So let's keep going.
Of content or the relativity of culture, it's just a mess. A bit of a brief tangent, but there are people who can and will defend a scene like the one in Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, because Kana is actually 500 years old, and the author is trying to play otaku culture ironically, even though that scene, and maybe even that entire character relationship, has little to no long-term bearing on the theme of the show. If we're to assume Dragon Maid is about motherhood? Okay, maybe it doesn't have a theme, but let's just say that Kana wants to be treated like a child to escape her responsibilities as a dragon, which we never directly learn about to my knowledge, and she just sort of does so when the script needs her to. Regardless, how does a sexual relationship with a kindergartner feed into that? Wouldn't it make more sense if Saikawa was the one making advances, but Kana didn't know whether to respond because she just wanted to be a normal kid? I mean, for the sake of character writing, that's probably the route you want to go, the route with the most conflict, unless you were solely interested in hinting at that sexual relationship. Even out of the context of our...
Pause 1 sec. I wonder if he knows the author's previous and current work. I believe it's
Probably not.
Yeah, basically the author has something for big titties and loose situations.
Yeah, and I think now is probably as good a time as any to get into. So he brings up the 1,000-year-old lolly vampire argument, which personally I can agree is a very weak argument, right? I prefer a look-based argument to an age-based argument, because I hate the concept of arbitrary age on characters dictating whether or not you can lewd them or not. And it's the same argument. Like, the 9,000-year-old lolly vampire argument is basically the exact same argument these idiots on Twitter use to justify, oh, but she's actually 16, and that means that you can't do lewd things and artwork because she's 16. And I'm sitting here going, well, it's an arbitrary number that the creator basically just tacked on almost in every single case. It's not necessarily... I would rather we go on a look-based system where, okay, does it look like a child or not, right?
Yeah, but of course you have the issue of looks. What is...
Yeah,
what
you
is,
do. Yeah.
How old looks Toru here? Ignoring the fact that she's also a 500 or 1,000-year-old dragon.
Exactly, and that's the problem, right? So it's a very murky water kind of situation, but I don't agree with the idea that an arbitrary number that could be just tacked onto it. Again, it's like you said, the dragon's like 500 years old. It looks like a 26-year-old, right? It's not a good indication of anything. So I'll put my cards on the table and say that I am pro-lolly to the extent that I do not believe that it should be censored. I personally do not like it in terms of preference. I'm not a fan of I don't like it in terms of personal enjoyment. However, I do not fault other people, and I do not discriminate against other people for their personal enjoyment of it. I believe that because it is essentially drawn medium, and it is not harming anyone, and it is not causing any perceivable harm to anyone, then I do not see any issue with it existing or people being into it. I think that you could make the argument of, well, you're into seeing kindergartners fucking or whatever, that's a bit fucking creepy and a bit weird. Sure, but there are plenty of other fetishes that one could look at and go, yeah, that's kind of fucking creepy and kind of fucking weird. So I don't think that... Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. I personally don't like it, but it has a right to exist. Because other things have a right to exist.
I think it's... Basically, personal morals or even societal morals are pretty much secondary to the facts of, is it causing harm, not to the morals, because those are also kind of arbitrary and depend on the society and the time we live in. That aside, is it causing harm? And in this case, you need to believe that by watching this, you will be engaging in similar activities, which in this specific case of Kana and Rico is rather difficult because both of them are little girls or depicted as such. So, as a grown man or woman, recreating the situation would be extremely difficult.
There's also something that I just thought about, and it's the idea of, like, I will give him the idea that this is definitely sexualized, right? It's clearly sexualized in a way that is meant to, attract that particular type of group. However, I don't think it's a stretch to say that in real life, kids do kind of shit all the time. They do stuff like playing house, right? Where you'll have, kids kissing and acting out what they see their parents doing, right? They see their parents kissing, they'll do similar activities. It's part of the learning process, in a sense.
Well, I don't think that really, if I may interrupt, I don't think that really applies because this medium isn't for children. Children will watch it regardless. But the argument isn't really that children will be reenacting this. The argument is that adults.
Well, I'm more talking about the idea that portraying this in media is not necessarily like. It's definitely more sexualized than what it would be in real life. However, I'm merely stating that.
I see.
It is a thing that is naturally occurring.
You're seeing it as a depiction of. Indeed, children playing house, which is happening.
Yes.
I don't think that really matters if it's happening in real life or not. There are plenty of unpleasant things happening in real life.
True.
So, but yeah, I can see that part. But I think
however, in a sense, what you could say is, and I'm not saying this. This is just a hypothetical that I've come up with, right? Since if we could go under the assumption that these two are just playing house, playing relationship, right? That's what they're doing. Is it a stretch to say that if you find sexual stuff within that, is it you that is the one that is putting that onto the characters rather than it being because this falls apart because obviously it is portrayed in a sexual manner, right? When you look at it, it's designed that way. However, in the hypothetical, right, it's similar to the what I've been seeing a lot on Twitter, where you have it was the new Persona character where she's in like a leotard, right, and her legs are showing, and there were all these people going, "Oh, you can't have a teenage character showing legs, and it's too sexualized," and da da da. When a girl in a gymnast leotard is not inherently sexual, so why are you considering it to be a sexual thing in this right now? Because it doesn't necessarily have to mean a sexual thing. It could be that it's part of the character's personality. They are gymnasts, so their transformation is that they are in a gymnast leotard, which has some, like a bit of a rock jacket on, and there's a few other like little personality elements to it, right? So it's the idea that it doesn't have to inherently be sexual, but people are prescribing sexual intent to it.
Yeah, that is of course. That's of course if you anime likes to play with sexuality and being sexy and all that stuff, and I don't fault people for placing that same template on other things. I don't fault them really that, but there's a second to place that template and afterwards not realizing that the template is incorrect.
Yeah.
I mean, for this Kana Riko scene, it works because the scene is obviously more sexually themed, but also I would say kind of in a childlike, harmless way. It isn't really the sexual situation you would have if it's two high school students.
Yeah, if I remember the scene correctly, it's been a while since I've watched Dragon Maid, but if I remember the scene correctly, I believe they were talking about marriage or wanting to be friends / in that, and I have a feeling that what happened is the dragon in the situation, which is clearly, although as the guy mentions, is as trying to be a child, right? Because they are technically a child in terms of dragon years, but not in terms of human years, right? So trying to be a normal child is perceiving the advances possibly in a different way to how they're being perceived by the human child. So
I think that kind of falls apart in this specific case, wherein Kana is being shown that she can manipulate people into believing. I believe in an episode where she first comes to school, she comes into Rico is bullying Kana, I believe, and Kana starts to cry. And later, Toru comments on Kana crying, why not just blow them away instead? And Kana notes that this would be a more effective way to solve the situation. So Kana is shown to be social.
So clearly, Kana is more intelligent than
socially, at least. Socially,
yes. In terms of that aspect. So that actually goes into my point that perhaps there's more going on there with that than meets the eye, which is interesting to talk about and think about. And it's a bit more interesting than just lolly bad, right? There is actually a little.
I don't think
there's a little bit to talk about there actually.
But I don't think we should focus on this specific case, but because the argument is wider.
Well. Yeah, we should see where because we've been paused for quite a bit and we've been talking about this for quite a bit. But let's continue and see what other points he has to make on this argument.
Supposed character goal of Kana trying to be a normal girl, this entire scene is just extremely unsettling and it's never brought up again. You might be asking what this random tangent has anything to do with AnyTube. I can watch a scene like this and see it for what it is because I don't subscribe to the standards seen commonly in the medium. AnyTube, for whatever reason, has a lot of difficulty divorcing itself from the standards of anime. It seems like all they...
I don't believe this is AnyTube, those two channels being shown. A compilation channel, and this is another basically compilation channel.
Or a clip channel.
Yeah, clip channel.
Sorry. That and also, again, it feels like he wanted to make an anti-lolly video, but is trying to frame it as an anti-YouTuber video.
Well, I think he just said it already. He sees an issue and he is very concerned that others don't share his problems.
His same problem.
Yeah, the same concerns.
Alright, let's keep going.
See is this super cute scene like they're both of age, which it would be if they were both of age. It wouldn't really complement either of their goals, like I said earlier, but at least it'd be legal. What I'm saying is this should be an extremely disconcerting note to have in any scene regardless of the genre, but it isn't really addressed that often in the community. And the reason why is because AnyTube doesn't think two underage girls hinting at sex is that outrageous, which is a symptom of an even bigger issue. Their priorities and standards are completely fucked. See, it's okay.
Alright.
Big statements. Please explain.
Big statement, and I feel again it comes back down to my personal feelings on the lolicon issue. I don't see it particularly causing any real harm for people to enjoy this kind of thing. I don't it's just two fictional characters engaging within a form of play. It's not really hinting at anything else, right?
Yeah,
at least in my eyes.
Not to go, but what about this too much? But
yeah,
of course, you got the killing, you got the genociding, you got the very you got issues with relationship dynamics. That is all kind of it's all kind of relative.
More tangentially related, you have other issues around, sexual violence and domestic abuse and other such things in media. So it's I feel like it's really hard to point this one thing out and say this one thing is definitely an issue. And here's the thing: if it was his personal preference and he was just saying, "Yeah, I just don't like it. I don't know why people are into," I'd be perfectly fine. But he's trying to justify something.
Well, he's
here.
saying that everybody else is wrong for not having the same issues and concerns that he has.
Yeah, and it's very weird because.
And not even.
I mean,
I have these issues and they don't. It's they are fucked.
Yeah, and I feel like.
Or it's another loud is funny thing.
And I feel like this could be one point in the video. Like it could be like he could just have, okay, well, I don't like AnyTube because they are apathetic. Because I reckon that's probably the best way to describe it. Right? Is they're apathetic to the speed and the medium, and I'm not. Move on to next point. Right? I feel like he's spending a lot of time on this lolly.
On a moral argument so far.
On a moral argument where he's not really talking about other. Like he might later on in the video, right? But he's not talking about other issues within the anime sort of like. Because there's a shitload of issues within AnyTube, right? Like all of the drama that happens is symptom of that, right? There's lots of infighting, lots of petty going after people, going after different people that like different things, kind of like what he's doing right now. Going after, all this stuff, right? There's a lot that you could criticize Pacific anime YouTubers and Pacific sects of AnyTube, because that's another thing.
So far this isn't an issue with AnyTube. This is more, firstly, it's an issue with Japan, and secondly, it's an issue with the people who like this medium. And only thirdly, really, it's after the people who consume the media, those people are also happen to have YouTube channels and such, and they're only the third rank of in this process.
And something to keep in mind is AnyTube is not actually. I wouldn't even consider AnyTube to be one singular entity. There are a number of different, I guess, cliques. In the high school terminology of a clique, like a group of like tangentially related individuals that tend to interact a lot more than others. Like you'll have kind of the old Podtaku sort of clique. You have Digibro. You have Digibro and the PCP kind of sect. You've got unknown otaku and his kind of sect. You have Anime Outsiders and his kind of like they have they don't really have like a clique, but they have more like a lot of people that are more kind of agree with them tend to flock within their sort of
and also
areas.
Of course you got the reviewers, like I said before, you got the reviewers, you got those who make long form videos, you have those who make funny short videos.
Yeah, so
those are it's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard to call them all one community.
Yeah, because they don't. A lot of these cliques don't even really interact with each other.
But the issue isn't really with AnyTube. The issue really is with anime fans, otaku, if you will.
Right. All right. Let's keep going.
If two underage girls are about to have sex, and it's okay if the bottom doesn't consent, even though this would totally constitute rape in any court of law in the United States, but it's absolutely fucked that Kirino got together with her brother. Sukuha can't get together with Kirito because that's wrong.
Alright, I find it very, very, very interesting that he's bringing up this argument, and I don't want to spoil it, but later on, he's going to drop something that I find very interesting as well.
I don't really... Yeah, it's a deliberate tangent. It's a deliberate sudden shift from the main argument. But it is... Just from this short piece, it's just the same moral argument of this goes against my Christian values, basically.
And I find it interesting that he brings up this, because I actually do not remember a lot of people being very up in arms about the stuff in Oreimo, I believe.
It's a disgrace that he didn't end up with Kuroneko.
See, that's what I mean. Like a lot of people, from what I've taught, because I didn't watch the show, and I didn't watch it when it was airing, and I didn't really care a whole lot about it. But from what I remember at the time, when I was active in the community at the time, most people were mad because their ship sank, not because it was incest. People were not really mad about the whole brother sister thing. They were mad about the, oh no, my ship is sunk. No, I wanted these two to get together, not these two. No, like it wasn't. Like there were very little people from my memory that were like, yeah, this is kind of creepy, kind of. In fact, I believe that Oreimo kind of spawned the whole Oni-chan meme for a while.
Well,
right?
I mean, true, and he also, and the ridiculously long title, at least in the anime, from the anime, or I know of the anime, maybe it existed as in the light novel sphere before it, but the very long and descriptive titles appears to have come as an influence of Oreimo, or maybe some work before it. But also, the same author made Eromanga Sensei, which has a similar incesty vibe.
Yeah, Eromanga Sensei, had a similar sort of thing. And there wasn't a lot of people, like people believe that Eromanga Sensei is trash, right? Like, that's the common criticism of it, is that it's trash. But
those people are shallow and don't understand the message of the show.
they don't understand the deep messages in Eromanga. But, the thing is I didn't see a lot of people getting mad about the incest part at all. I don't know where this guy is getting his sort of idea that there were a lot of people that were going, oh, this is bad. Like in the same way that he's getting about Lolly, right? In the exact same way that he's having a moral outrage about Lolly. I don't remember seeing a lot of people having a moral outrage about the incest. Yeah. In fact, most people were on board with the incest train, and it was a meme. It literally became a meme for like ages. Like the whole Oni-chan kind of like it's almost like how Ara. It's almost like how Ara has become a meme now with Shotokan and shit, right? It's
with
similar
the
kind of meme.
Oni-chans and Shota specifically. But I can remember two other shows, Yosoga no Sora and something Iro, where both of them are based, I believe, from eroge visual novels. One of them basically was on a route to have some childhood friend be the winner of the show. And suddenly it switched to his sister, which was very funny and interesting.
I think that's the point as well. I think it's meant to be funny.
And Yosogu no Sora was a omnibus format where basically you could, if you have the entire season, you could just pick one. If you have episodes 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8, then you have the childhood friend route. If you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and 11, then you have the route of a different character. So basically, it's almost a choose your own adventure based on the episodes.
And anime tends to play around a lot with the idea of it's the steps, like even biological in some cases. But it's my sister that's just moved in because the parent is marrying another parent. Kiss exists. You've got like there was like that demon one. There was one that was like a succubus or something. Where she moved into the house after the dad got up with the mum or something. Like it's a common fucking trope. Like it's really fucking common, and I don't know. Like I said, it's my point to get back to the video is I don't know where he's seeing all of this moral outrage from.
Just I don't see it. One look at fan fiction and look at the tag incest, and you'll see everything from very often siblings, but also, of course, the good old mom and son, and the father and daughter, and uncle. I have a feeling that all of this bullshit
comes back down to the taboo arguments or the taboo points we've been having with the whole trap saga, right? Is the idea that it's attractive to people because it's a taboo, and it's the same with lolly, right? It's the forbidden fruit, right? You're not supposed to fuck your sister. In fact, don't fuck your sister because it's not a good idea in real life, right? Don't fucking do that shit.
And
it's
of course,
not good.
These anime fantasies are a perfectly safe place to engage in those fantasies and taboos.
You can engage in the idea of banging your sister without actually having to bang your sister, right?
The one thing that the anime community, the Japanese affiliated communities have, that I think they share with the Japanese people in this regard, is a clear separation between the fiction and the reality. Of course, Sword Art Online is fiction and everything in it is fiction. Why would you ever think that I would replicate something in it besides some cringy, cool swords fight movements?
Yeah, or cosplay or whatever. But let's keep going.
Sure.
But we're doing this is a very good discussion though. This is going quite well. But let's see what is, because we're 5 minutes out of 12. So let's see what his next point is.
Dude! What the fuck?
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain.
I can't believe I wrote a 3,500 word video about Miss Kobayashi.
You wanna read that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go back and find that.
Let's try that.
Yeah, Blue Ridge Mountain.
Okay.
Bam.
Oh god,
wait. Some of them are actually fine with incest in anime. That's even worse.
Somebody is fine with incest in fictional media.
Yeah.
Some of them are fine with incest in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good fucking point.
Somebody is fine with murder in Game of Thrones. How terrible of them. That's a human life that's now gone. Yeah, it kind of reeks of Christian values.
Ellie, they physically killed the actor to make it the most realistic. the most realistic.
It's the only way. It's the only way to get the real...
We must. You have to see the real pain on the actor's face as he gets stabbed with a sword.
It's the only moral way. It's the only way you get the message across.
See, it's really
Murder
funny.
Murder is bad. The only way
again,
to get... Yeah, go on.
Again, it's really funny how he shows a bunch of YouTube comments clearly cracking jokes and making memes about the fucking incest shit, which is what people do, right? They joke about it. It's like the FBI meme for lolly, right? It's a fucking joke, right? And he seems to be taking it fucking seriously and being like, God, some people are actually fine with it, when it's like, no, they're just memeing, dude.
I do think he isn't really aiming this argument or this criticism against the memesters in the previous frame.
Possibly, that's true. But back to this though, it's like, here's the thing: is I missed this the first time I watched this video, because again, he does that thing where he flashes shit on the screen really fucking fast, and you don't actually get a chance to kind of take it in and realize what he's actually saying. So I actually, this is my first time reacting to this bit. I didn't even see this. Like, all of them are actually fine. Like some of them are actually fine with incest in anime. It's like you said. There's incest in a lot of shit. Like Game of Thrones, there's incest in it. There's incest in a lot of different stories. It's not like it should. Like, what is his argument here? Is his argument, oh well, it should be off limits because some people enjoy it? Like,
I don't know. Let's see if he goes on with his argument.
Let's see where he goes.
I can't believe I wrote a 3,500 word video about Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid and never even mentioned the presence of lesbians.
Even as far back as Elfin Lee, there's a scene in episode 5 where
Loud
the guy and his cousin...
Loud is very funny.
Yeah, let's keep going.
And kiss, but because people watch the show for its edgy content, this is pretty much forgiven in the grand scale of things. I've never heard anyone bring up that moment before. Literally, no, it's in the show. Here's a clip. This happened in Elfin Lied. No one talks about it, but it happened.
Maybe no one talks about it because no one gives a shit.
Yeah, that's basically why, eh? If nobody talks about it, it isn't really worth mentioning.
Like I haven't seen Elfin Lied because I haven't seen a lot of anime.
Well, I watched it and I read a good deal of the manga, but it's like a long time ago. It was my one of my first edgy anime.
Elfin Lied is way back in the olden days. Of the fandom, but again, it's because his point seems to be that everyone passed over it because of all the other stuff in Elfin Lied, like the violence and all the other shit. And it's like, wouldn't you think that under his same logic, the violence would also be a big issue? Like,
it's kind of Of course, it's not entirely arbitrary. What's morals? Sexuality is, of course, much more important than violence. Maybe it should be the other way around. Maybe it should change or be changed. But the thing is that incest themes are not a big deal either. I think that he's the strange one. And of course,
I agree.
And the more important thing, I think, is that he hasn't really shown how it's harmful. I mean, you can...
No, he hasn't.
I mean, you can make a far stronger argument against lollies being harmful. But incest between cousins, sisters... I mean, father-daughter, mother-son is also much more harmful.
In real life, there's obviously the genetic argument. It causes problems with genetics,
even
right?
If
so you can make like in real life, there's a problem. There are literal hard problems with inbreeding, right?
Yeah, but
it causes issues.
I mean, once every 5 generations or whatever, a sister brother won't immediately birth a horrible mutant.
True.
It's more of a
but it's more of an argument than what he's presenting.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
But
right?
I'm
more of an argument than...
I'm going to bring more of an argument against father-daughter or parent-child, because those are very imbalanced in their relationships. I mean, siblings are much more equal. Cousins are also basically fine.
You have a massive difference in the power dynamic between the two, because you have the father or the mother figure, which is seen as the more superior in terms of the hierarchy. So you have there's a bit of an issue with the power dynamics there.
Yeah. So in those, this is of course this is an argument of portraying things as positive is kind of an issue if it's clearly a negative in any possible case.
However, would you argue that this scene of these two kissing is necessarily being portrayed as a positive?
Well, that's of course, yeah.
Is it being portrayed as a negative, a positive, or is it simply just neutral? Because I would argue that because here's the thing: I haven't seen the rest of the context of the scene. I've only seen what he has shown me as. This is the problem, right? He's presented this...
Yeah.
What he's done is he has presented this scene, right? What he's shown us as being the problem, right? However, from what he's shown, it just seems like a neutral representation of two siblings kissing. He hasn't shown...
it's a cousin, so it's...
cousin. Okay, cousin, right?
Well,
it's a neutral representation of cousin and... cousins kissing. Cousin, nephew kissing. Right? To me, from what he's shown, it doesn't seem to be negative or... Like, it's not like one kissed the other and one was clearly not into it and was trying to fight it and there was issues. And it's not like they were both fucking going at it like goddamn animals. It was just sort of like... She came in romantically, she kissed him, they backed away, like, it wasn't... it didn't necessarily seem to me like it was pushing it as a positive or a negative. It was just kind of a neutral representation.
True, but I don't think even you need to apply this. My thing of portraying things positively when they're clearly negative in any real contexts more applied to the parent-child relationships, or maybe even murder for the greater good is something we need to accept. Those kind of morals are harder to justify, and are of course it's kind of hard to say, yeah, that's a good message that we should have. But Cousins is really low on the...
It's low on the priorities list, yeah, a little bit. So, yeah.
Murder is higher than incests, than cousins liking each other.
Because, let's be real here, incest is a very rare occurrence. I'm sorry. From what I understand, I don't have statistics to back that statement, but from what I know, incest is not something that happens a lot. I mean, even in places like Alabama, which is where it's basically a meme at this point that they partake in incest a lot. But I don't actually think that it's a very widespread issue.
Well, I think that of course it happens more often. Of course, cousins, you don't often bother to find out who your uncle's brother is, and that's of course
you could have it happen on accident. That's true.
And of course, it only if it's happened often enough in a small-ish community, you can have issues on the longer term. But that is unknowingly and isn't fetishized in any way, which is kind of the argument against incest here. Yeah. I believe.
All right, let's keep going.
And again, they don't really pay attention to it because there are much more pressing things to talk about, which I guess technically is fine, because when you're talking about animation, you're probably going to pay greater attention to scenes that are given greater emphasis, but it's also pretty irresponsible to consider a show in its entirety and not cover all the bases, because then you're creating an environment where people watch the show for things it's well known for, but then completely ignore those tiny design choices that build on your tolerance over time, like lollies, and incest, and the blatant hypersexuality of women. Again, random tangent, but I don't like Konosuba.
Okay.
So his opinions are wrong.
Yeah, he's like this is giving me whiplash because he was talking about like he brings up the like he goes into the idea he goes into the idea of I believe boiling frog, which is the idea of if you introduce a frog into boiling water, it will jump out. But if you introduce a frog into cold water and slowly turn up the heat, the frog will boil to death in the pot, right? Which is, I believe, is his argument here, is that because people are not covering the incest or the lolly or hypersexualization of women, which for some reason is a problem, It builds up people's tolerances to those things, so that when they do occur in a more pronounced way, people do not question it, which I believe seems to be his issue.
My main issue with the previous segment that he unceremoniously left behind is that he never gave an argument for why it's bad. Because Can you recall him saying why incest is bad?
No.
I mean, you could.
He hasn't provided an argument as to why he believes these things are a problem.
Yes, especially in the fiction department, because of course you say in real life the relationship dynamics, birth defects, genetics, whatever. But in fiction, he hasn't said anything about it. And of course, you need to accept that if people see incest in the show, then they suddenly gain urges to have some incest in real life.
It seems, he's not, like, outside of just, I don't like this thing, he's not really explaining a whole lot as to, like, why this is a problem.
Well, he doesn't like Konosuba, and I think he might explain that. Maybe.
Yeah, but again, it's such whiplash because he's whiplashed into, and he does admit, yes, it's a random tangent, but I don't see how Konosuba, like, because him not liking Konosuba is a completely subjective thing. Like, you cannot like Konosuba. It's not a problem with that. I don't see how it's on the same level as incest and lolly and
I think
hypersexualization.
he's going to equate it because it wouldn't. He's placing the same importance, at least so far, on Konosuba, incest, and lolly. So I do wonder why he thinks it's on the same level.
Alright, well, let's see if he explains it.
I think it's loud, I think it's obnoxious, I think it's impatient, and it has absolutely no wit whatsoever. But for the most part, AnyTube reveres it because it's a subversion of the isekai genre, and a lot of the choices in character setting and even story play out in parallel to what you may traditionally expect from the genre. But here's the problem. It has literally no other appeal. Someone who doesn't watch isekai religiously under the guise of, hey, they finally made a good isekai, isn't going to receive the show that well, because on its own, it fails to uphold any sort of long-term engagement. But people who watch anime a lot are so engaged in the genre that they are willing to forego actual characters and celebrate the worst possible subversion of them. And when strangers ask you why 4 idiots screaming in a circle is funny to you, you respond with, well, you see in this other show.
It's not a subversion, it's a parody.
I don't understand what his argument. Like, I wouldn't introduce someone to anime through Konosuba. Konosuba is not really a anime.
Yeah, you don't really introduce people to the parody of a thing.
Yeah, it's because it's like you said, it's a parody. It's parodying something else, so you would want to introduce them to the thing that it's parodying first, right? You don't like it's not like his argument is, oh well, if you introduce if someone asks you why these idiots are running around in circles or whatever, and you go, well, but in this other show, you know, you wouldn't do that. You would just have them watch the other show first, and then you would introduce them to Konosuba.
I do wonder. He doesn't watch every isekai show. I don't think you need really isekai knowledge to find this funny either, because the joke isn't, look, he's in an isekai world where he isn't all powerful. The joke is more of he thinks he's a big hotshot, but he isn't. And it's far more universal than a specific isekai show or genre of shows.
Yeah, and it's like, I haven't watched Konosuba myself, but from what I understand, like it is widely regarded to being quite a good, hilarious show, right? And I don't know. I just feel like there's no issue with not liking it. Like, if he doesn't get the humor and it doesn't click with him, then I don't have an issue with that. I just don't see how that's I don't see how it's a problem that AnyTube likes the show when he doesn't. I don't, because that's the thing. There are plenty of shows that AnyTube reviewers or people select individuals on AnyTube, because again, they are individuals, they're not a collective, right? Digibro has different fucking tastes to Gigic, who has different tastes to Arcada, who has different tastes to Demolition
Well, if
right?
I am now part of AnyTube, then I will say that I disagree with AnyTube for AnyTube's faultness of slime.
Exactly.
I don't
right?
like slime whatsoever.
Exactly, but that's the thing. You cannot like slime, and I can like slime, and we don't have to like kill each other, right? And it's not like a massive deal that the people who are big shot names in the anime tube sphere like a particular show. It's not a massive problem. I do see
wonder
how,
if you can go a little more meta. I do wonder why he thinks AnyTube liking a show that he doesn't like is a problem.
I'm not sure. I think it's a very weird
objection.
Yeah, it's a very weird objection, because again, it's such a subjective thing, right? You don't have to like the like. You know, I haven't watched Attack on Titan, and That was considered to be one of the fucking, like, something that AnyTube was really fucking hyping up, and hell, even people that I talked to who were not even anime fans were talking about Attack on Titan and how amazing it was or whatever, right? So...
Attack on Titan is okay.
Yeah, like, but that's the thing, right? You don't need to, you know, if you don't like something, just don't fucking watch it. Or if you don't care about something, then just don't fucking watch it. It's not AnyTube's fault that they are latching on to something that's popular, because that's the other thing to consider, is that a lot of YouTube is what is popular, what is going to get me the views, right? And that's just a fact of life in terms of YouTube. You can't ignore that. So they could be just covering Konosuba and praising it or criticizing it in some cases, right? Because there are probably a few that have criticized it.
I'm sponsored by Bookwalker. Go read the Konosuba novels.
Go read Overlord. Yeah. So yeah, let's keep going. But I don't understand. I don't know why this is a problem. But let's keep going.
Oh, this is the simplest possible way of understanding what I'm getting at here. You don't drop Kobayashi immediately when Kana jumps her kindergartner friend and attempts to fuck her because you low-key saw something like that before, and didn't really think much of it. But then you get grossed out when Kirino kisses her older brother because it's not something you see nearly as often.
I don't have a problem with both. I don't.
You can incest stories are far more of a thing than lolly stories, so I don't really get why, unless he, of course, we live in different countries to begin with, so who knows, maybe in his circle of friends and buddies and internet pals.
Maybe it's morally different where he lives or something.
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we live also on separate, on other sides of the planet.
I'm in New Zealand, and in New Zealand, actually there are a few incest jokes. There are a couple. There's more jokes in New Zealand about fucking goats than there are about incest. There's a place in New Zealand called Gore, right? It's called Gore, and I think it's somewhere in the south. I'm not actually sure where Gore is, but there's a place in New Zealand called Gore, and the common running gag / joke among even people that come from Gore is that they fuck goats.
Sounds like the Welsh fuck sheep.
It's similar to that, and one of the best jokes, one of my friends in high school, he made a really great fucking joke, a Gordon Ramsay joke, where it was, the lamb sauce is so raw, people in Gore are still trying to fuck it. And it's like it's just a joke, and it's not a big deal. And then of course there's also like the idea that everyone from the West Coast is bogans. That's the other one. There's a few, like, we have jokes like that.
I mean, every country of every region has the thing.
Hell, we even brought it up before in America with Alabama, right? Or Alabama, or however you pronounce it. Like the incest is something that they joke about over there, and it's not.
I mean, of course, in here it's not the South, because the South are just a bunch of Catholic, crazy, religious people, but the East is the countryside, so the East has all those jokes.
So but back on the topic of the video, I don't see his thing. Like, he's talking about, again, it's the idea of boiling frog, right? Because people are being slowly exposed to lolicon, right, in small little chunks, they don't drop Kobayashi right away when it happens, because it's something that we've become acclimatized to, right? Is his argument.
I do wonder, of course, Oreimo has a long build-up to the relationship they have at the end. So, if people suddenly drop out because of the end, then I don't know what they're watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fucking obvious in Oreimo that there's some incestual shit going on. Clearly, I mean, there's other characters and other ships.
Kuroneko, far better.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so there's clearly other stuff going on there, but like the show is called "Why is my how can my little sister be this cute?" Right? That's what the fucking title of the show is. If you read the title of the show, and you get surprised when there's some incestual shit in it. I don't know what to tell you, right? I don't.
What? Incest in my Sis series?
Yeah, exactly.
I would never have known.
It's the fucking comic with the sharks. Oh, there's sharks in the water. I don't like sharks. I'm just gonna jump in the water then, right? Like, I don't know. Oh, God. Anyway, let's keep going.
Gateway anime like Bebop or Fullmetal Alchemist don't have these risky themes, and seeing something like that in them would be pretty fucking strange. But by the time you're into shit like Kobayashi, your tolerance of lolly or otaku culture has become almost native to the standards of anime itself. Like, your mind is assimilating to the hyperbolic realities depicted in these kinds of shows. And that is my big issue with AnyTube. It's not watching anime from the context of your own experiences and values. It's watching anime from the context of...
I do...
Okay.
I think this is a very big statement of those people are not watching it from their own experiences, because that is rather impossible to do. You always watch stuff from your own experience, but I think he's more saying from their own culture more than their own experience. Yeah. Like they are abandoning the culture, their culture of better values, and trading it in favor of a...
Which is a very weird argument. It's a very colonialist argument almost, right? It's like, why are you not seeing this from your own culture? You should be, rejecting the opposite culture, right? Like, the inferior culture of Japan, right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there is, of course...
It's fucking weird.
Yeah, I can get the argument of anime is very focused on consuming and buying the products, etc., the figurines, getting into the waifu arguments and all that kind of stuff. So in that sense, I don't blame, or I don't think it's very wrong to say you should try to stay away from that overly consumerist attitude.
And I think this is where you get the difference between normal anime fans and weeaboos. Because that's why weeaboo exists. Weeaboo exists as that distinction between somebody who really likes anime and Japanese culture and likes to consume it and enjoys it, right? And the people that obsess over it. So there's already a clear distinction between casual, more, intermediary / I would consider myself probably in that camp, like the kind of like the difference between otaku and weeaboo, right? Like I would consider myself more in like an otaku kind of sense, where I'm very invested in the medium. I watch quite a bit of it, or at least I watch what I'm interested in. I, may buy something every now and then, or I might read something every now and then, or do something like that. But I don't obsess over the culture or hold it in a different, higher than my own, or hold it in a different regard. I just simply enjoy a lot of aspects of it while also recognizing some of the flaws. Whereas you'll get what I believe this guy is complaining about, which is the idea of someone who abandons their traditional culture or obsesses over the Japanese culture to such an extent that it becomes a defining characteristic of their person.
I don't think it's kind of a... I don't think you can get those from just YouTube videos, because those YouTube videos are focused towards that group, so they're going to talk about media that they're focused on. Outside of those YouTube videos, of course, they have normal lives where they buy their cornflakes and with milk and their American hot dogs or whatever culture and country they live in.
It's the difference between the persona and the person.
Yeah, and even still, I don't think he has a appreciation of the separation of fiction and reality.
Doesn't seem to.
Of course, I don't think it is. I don't believe it would be unique to anime and manga and all Japanese culture. But I do think it's very important that there exists a clear distinction between fiction and reality, which is which I know it's far more present than in it's far more real and clearly seen in Japan itself, where there is this rule of maid cafes, for example. Won't go too deep into it, but if you go into a maid cafe, you follow the rules, the social rules, the written rules, etc. If you break those, you're out. You're shown as somebody who doesn't know boundaries. And so if you're acting out anime in real life, even, let's say meme things excluded, if you're sincerely acting out anime and trying to be anime, then you're also excluded basically from the community as a whole, because you don't know the difference between reality and fiction.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that it's interesting. It's very interesting. But let's keep going. We're almost there.
Anime. You're disconnecting yourself from the standards relative to your own life and those around you, and indulging in anime like it belongs in its own special.
This statement is exactly he says your own life, but he basically means your own culture.
Yeah, he's conflating two different things.
But I think it's a slightly issue of course, not placing the media you consume in the context of the country that it's made in. If you have a French movie which would have very different artistic and stylistic things and changes compared to an American movie, I mean you can see those foreign movies, and if you place it next to an American movie, you can immediately see those differences, and you can say, wow, that's a weird shot. Why did they do that? Well, because it's French, because it's German, because
it's the specific styles that have been adapted in those regions and have been passed down in those particular areas.
And if you have a European movie of some kind, just let's take Belgium for instance. If you have a movie with Belgian customs and Belgian thingies, some strange products or habits that they have, is it really? Do you have to judge it by an American standards then? Because I assume this guy is American.
I mean, there is possibly some value to it. However, it's the same with, like, there's value in viewing things in a Marxist lens, to, harken back to a very old thing. Just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean that it is a worthwhile thing to do.
But I'm slightly concerned, maybe a big word, but let's use it anyway. I'm slightly concerned by his insistence that you should view anime through an American culture, his own idea of values.
Maybe not necessarily American, but via the values within the place that you are residing or born or in. Right? I have a feeling that seems to be more his point, is that you should always view, well, maybe not always, but you should view the media that you consume through your own lens, which I find to be very, very silly.
Well, basically because you always do view it through your own lens, but of course you can adjust those lenses by adding some little bit of capitalism to it, a little bit of communism, maybe some Plato adding to the filter, but of course it's all your own perspective that is inevitable.
Alright, let's keep going.
Sphere of influence. And it's from that disconnect you get people who only know anime. The standards of anime become your standards, and suddenly you've got proud pedophiles and people unironically wanting to fuck their family members and maybe even...
This is a mean, underhanded thing of calling Digi a pedophile. I do know that he has come into defense of Lolicon. But
he's definitely into lolly, and he has said so multiple times.
Yeah, but I don't. Pedophilia is a real life attraction, and I don't. And here's this distinction between fiction and reality. I do, if I see posters of anime girls on his wall, so I think he has also his understanding of this separation of fiction and reality.
Yeah, and when it comes to Digibro and the accusations against him in terms of pedophilia, I've argued with people, specifically in the Anime Outsiders Discord, about this multiple times, because they tend to also do the meme of, oh, well, Digi's a pedo, and da-da-da-da-da. And I've always asked them, okay, well, what's the actual evidence? And I've been linked his Kiwi Farms, because he does have a Kiwi Farms, and a lot of the evidence is just this guy that used to live with him said that he found the thing that had the things that, like, it's very much shit that could just be made up. And there's not a whole lot of really substantial, solid evidence against Digi that I would be comfortable enough to say that he engages in pedophilic activity. And if there was evidence that was strong enough to convince me, that evidence should be going to the fucking police, not Kiwi Farms, right?
Not internet drama.
Yeah, this is what I like. There's if you actually had someone who was able to accuse him of legit pedophilia, right, and had evidence or had a story that could be investigated by the police, go to the fucking police and get him arrested. Because I don't think anyone is okay with pedophiles, right? Even lolicons, right? I don't think anyone is okay with pedophilia in a real life, like, at all, almost, right? Like, in any context. So I think that if you actually had evidence of someone that was committing an act of pedophilia or having pedophilic material that was real life and not just, anime fucking lolicon, right? You just go to the cops, get them arrested.
And I'm going to be slightly mean here and say that there is more issues with furries than with anime in this regard. There are more...
Oh yes, because this has become it's interesting how he's conflating sort of lumping the furries in with the weebs right now, because there's currently a bit of a feud going on the Twitter sphere between the furries. Oh, okay. Well, what's happening?
Maybe it's not maybe the most important thing.
It's kind of relevant, because of the fact that he's bringing furries up. In that, so what's happening is there were furries going off about lolly, because something that furries have a really bad problem of not staying in their fucking lane, because they seem to have this really weird moral high ground, snooty tooty fucking, well, we're morally superior than everyone, even though you dress up in fucking fursuits and shit and diapers, right? So they were getting on about weebs and attacking weebs because of the lolly shit, and people were just turning around and going, you motherfuckers have actually been banned from fucking counties and shit because of your conventions getting too out of control, and also the fact that furries have had to have HIV fucking testing at their fucking conventions and all this other crazy bullshit. And yet they're sitting here thinking that they have a moral superiority against weebs because of fictional characters. It's very weird. But it's relevant kind of to this, because he seems to be trying to make a comparison / joining the two groups together in some way, which is completely fucking inaccurate.
Yeah, I do think that, but I'm not involved in the furry communities. I do think that there's far more of an emphasis of acting out your fantasies in furry fandoms than there is in anime fandoms.
Yeah,
which is of course could cause problems and has caused problems in the past with furries.
Internet historian. What video was it? The FurCon? I can't remember. There was FurFest. I think that's the one. Look up Internet historian FurFest or something along those lines.
And of course, maid cafes are also a playing out of a fantasy as such. But like I said, it's far more regulated.
They have. There was an anime, and at one of the conventions I went like a long time ago. They had an anime caf kind of thing where you would like it was at a different location. They had an anime caf kind of maid caf kind of thing where you got served by the maids, and they have hard fast rules, right? No touching, no crude comments, no just enjoy the food, enjoy the people in the outfits, don't be an asshole, right? Is basically what it comes down to. But again, it's like you said, there are hard and fast rules, and if you don't follow the rules, you get kicked out, right? It's how it works. So yeah, let's keep going and see where it goes.
They're pets. It never stops appearing en masse among religious fans of anime, and it shows.
Fuck you! Fuck you!
AnyTube traps itself in this insular environment where if it happens often enough in anime, it's completely fine and you aren't pressed to question it. Like, Evangelion's waifu politics were originally extremely poignant aspects of Rei and Asuka's characters, but because it was successful and other anime started ripping off the dynamic, the entire function of a group of female side characters competing with the main character has devolved into
I don't think Konosuba is a thing of female side characters. I almost say that those...
he's essentially just complaining about the harem genre, which is a genre. It's a genre.
Of course, but I don't think I would almost say that the female female characters with Kazuma are also main characters, almost.
Yeah.
But they also don't compete with Kazuma, so I don't think this example here is
and I find it
accurate.
Yeah, and I don't see what it's kind of my summary of this whole video. I don't really see what the issue is here, because clearly, I mean, if you don't like harem shows, then avoid harem shows. It's not like not every show has a harem in it.
And I don't think the girls in Konosuba really like Kazuma as a romantic option.
Yeah, well, it's a parody, right? Which is
part of
the parody would be the idea that because it's parodying the idea of the female party members lusting, they Sword Art Online, right? They all lust after Kirito, right? Which is what happens in Sword Art Online. So
but they're not the parody if the reverse is happening here. A deconstruction, a whatever, and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, it isn't. The girls don't like Kazuma really romantically. So I think this is a bad example.
Yeah, I think it's a bad example too. I think that he yeah, let's keep going.
Literal porn. We don't have these mortal developed human beings in our animations anymore. We have sex icons. And if they're not meant to be sex icons, then people make them sex icons anyway, because the insular standards of anime have become their own. I'm not gonna pretend this isn't a widespread issue singular to anime fandoms. The over-reliance on media and the insular environments that media is created in, especially with the advent of the internet, is something affecting pretty much every modern genre, from film to television to video games to digital media. Donkey can be outraged that a JRPG like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has exaggerated female body proportions because although the creators and fans of Xenoblade can easily dismiss that as being a trademark of the style, Donkey isn't going to look at it from the angle of a JRPG. He's viewing it as a Nintendo fan and someone who has little patience for anything that doesn't
I think that this is very presumptuous of him to know what Donkey... Unless he said it, of course.
Yeah, I haven't watched those. I've seen Donkey videos before, but I haven't watched those specific videos, so I would not know.
But also, I think it's rather strange to criticize Xenoblade Chronicles' exaggerated female proportions and say, but it's a Nintendo game.
Yeah, and I think that knowing
important.
Donkey, from what I know of Donkey and his work, it could very well have just been a joke, right? It could have just been a quip. Again, I haven't seen the video. I would have to watch the video to actually understand, because he doesn't show the context, right? But I'm inclined to believe that it was just kind of like oh well, look at the exaggerated proportions, lol, right?
Look
like,
at the TDs. But this is a
Look at the
Nintendo
titties.
game for children.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a meme, right? Like I don't think that he would be serious in that somehow. Like I don't get the presumption from Donkey that he is very Puritan in terms of that shit, and that Nintendo games have to be for kids, right? Like it seems like a very weird sort of assumption on his part, unless he knows more about Donkey than we do, which he probably might, because again, I don't really watch
He's shown
Donkey.
2 videos, which is more than I ever watched of him.
Yeah, and I've watched a few Donkey videos, but not specifically those 2. So I have a general idea of Donkey's sort of video style, but I don't. Again, I would have to actually know what he's said about the topic and what his stance is on the topic to know for sure, which is a problem with this video, because you can't just make statements about people, because not everyone knows who Donkey is, right? Like, it could be people watching this video who have absolutely no idea who Donkey even is,
and why he's relevant.
Why he's relevant. So you can't just bring up people like that and just assume, like, you could do it with PewDiePie, because everyone would know probably what PewDiePie is, but even then, there might be just that one person who's new to the internet and doesn't know who PewDiePie is.
Well, I never really watched PewDiePie, so I guess I fall into that camp.
Exactly. So yeah. All right. Let's keep going. We're almost there.
Expedite the flow of gameplay. Likewise, I can be completely disgusted by the obnoxiously blatant proportions of Lukua, but for mainstay anime fans it's fine because her archetype is a trademark of the genre. I can hate Konosuba all I want because it's loud and annoying, but anime fans don't care because its characters are supposed to be a parody. And while I can find Oreimo's character relationships legitimately interesting in the context of being a satire of otaku culture, people will ultimately be put off by it in the same way I was.
Okay. I find it interesting how he seems. This is what I was talking about earlier, where he kind of drops something, right? He's dropping the fact that he likes Oreimo, right? Despite the fact that it has the incest in it. Yet he's not giving that same charity to Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
Or Konosuba. No, that's not really true. Konosuba.
But you get what I mean, right? Is he's not. It's kind of like he's got one rule for rum, but not the other, right? He's willing to look past the incest.
Well, I don't think he's. I think he's just saying, I have an issue with them getting together. So he's fine with the entire show except this thing at the end, and on that point. But that's kind of the issue of that's the whole point of the show. So why are you watching?
Yeah. Alright, we're 2 minutes left, so let's keep going.
Put off by Kobayashi's lolly rape scene when they see how it ends. And they'll use that ending as their reasoning to not watch it in the same way I use Kobayashi's lolly perversion as a reason to hate Kobayashi as a show. And that's what I mean by your standards are completely fucked, AnyTube. You can't find it within yourself to evaluate a show or a culture from a personal standpoint because you're too busy assimilating your worldviews and tastes to those found in the media you digest. You've somehow found a way to not be extremely uncomfortable when a female character's only motive is to fuck the audience surrogate. Because outside of actual pornography, more often than not, that's absolutely ridiculous, especially when it's the collective whim of your side characters. Rooting for those kinds of qualities in character writing just makes the entire genre embarrassing to indulge in. Oh hey dad, yeah I was just watching Wolf Children, it's a really sweet movie. Oh hey mom, I was just watching Akira, it's fucking badass as shit. For the Emperor! But Jerry, you might ask, if your main issue is people's over-reliance on media, then doesn't that somewhat incriminate the role of media in their development as a youth?
I want Raven to rip my teeth out and tongue my bloody mouth.
Can't you argue using this logic that violent video games do inspire mass murderers?
Yeah, you could.
There we go. Right.
I see just some for
okay, I'll let it go for a little longer.
Get ready for this one!
Alright, let's see. Wait.
Okay, so media influences, but traditional and interactive media are two vastly different mediums. It's far more likely that a fan of Mein Kampf, the Communist Manifesto, or a book I have no idea about, would resort to violence than a fan of Grand Theft Auto, probably because the mere angle of player interactivity is a meta that intentionally or unintentionally sterilizes violence. There is a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, first off, media influences, but traditional and interactive media are two very different mediums. True, but I don't think that what follows from it doesn't work, because there's a good argument for that interactive media are more influential than traditional media.
Yeah, because if you're interacting with it in a more I guess tangential way than simply watching or consuming something via watching it, I think that there's definitely it'll probably stick with you more if you are the one committing the act rather than you watching somebody else commit the act.
True. It also kind of depends, of course, on the game and the context the game gives. If the game thinks it's very important that you killed somebody, on the other side, you have something like a Warriors game, Hyrule Warriors or Dynasty Warriors, where you just you take one step,
thousands of people. Yeah,
you take one step, and the entire population of Germany dies.
China.
The entire population of China dies the moment you set one step forward.
Yeah, I think the distinction between media, although the argument can be made that some media could probably have different influences and effects on people than others, I think that overall it's still agreeing to the idea that media influences people in a vastly more in a bigger way than what I believe it does, because I'm more in the camp that you can definitely be influenced by media, because I mean because we were talking about this earlier, like a point that you can make is that it makes you cry, it makes you happy, it makes you sad, it's clearly the media is affecting you in a emotional way, but from what the studies have shown, particularly in terms of video games, is that those emotional reactions tend to be very temporary in most cases. So if you're killing somebody in Grand Theft Auto, or if you are doing something within a game, such as playing a violent video game or playing a multiplayer, so I think one of the studies was in a multiplayer situation where people were getting frustrated at the fact that they were getting killed, right? And it was making them angry and increasing their anger levels. However, such things are incredibly temporary, right? It only would last for maybe a couple of seconds to maybe a minute, right? It wouldn't affect them outside of the play session, is I believe what the study got at. So I think
it's very hard to say it's hard to say that one medium influences you more or less than the other. It kind of depends more on the piece of literature, of game, or of art.
And I think it also depends on the individual. Which
True,
was my next point. I think different individuals have different levels as to which they will be influenced by certain types of media and certain medias, because clearly, because it's the idea of like one person can be really into the Joker in Batman and not shoot up somewhere, whereas someone else can be really into the Joker and then get there, and then have a number of other factors combine, right, that can lead to them committing a horrific act. It's never usually just one thing, right?
I'm going to give
a combo.
I'm going to give a horrible example, but take for instance the unlikely case that somebody who's playing Skyrim a couple of times sees the value of there are more sides to one argument. There are always people who vehemently disagree with each other might have more in common than they think. maybe they both have a point. That's kind of the message of Skyrim. Both sides have a point. It's you can
yes and no.
Yeah,
Skyrim.
But let me continue my argument.
Yeah. It would go off topic for me to explain a bit more of that.
Yeah, so you could say a theme of Skyrim is both sides of an argument can have points that are valid. And you're a crazy person who have never heard of this concept before. That would influence you going forward. But if you're playing Dynasty Warriors, which doesn't really have a point, just fun mowing down faceless goons and sometimes a bigger guy with a spear.
Bigger, more boss type.
Yeah,
person.
But that doesn't really have any point, theme, nothing really a life lesson you can take from it. In that case, Skyrim would have far more of an influence on you as a person than Dynasty Warriors would have. So, and that goes for, I'm going to cheat here again and say a visual novel, which is halfway to a book, has of course characters you empathize with, grow to care about, choices you make, etc., which could have far more of an impact on your personal being, of how other people deal with problems and such, than Skyrim would have. So those are free games, visual novels, kind of cheating, but that aside, those are free pieces of interactive media that have very different levels of influence on you as a person. So I think that this traditional media and interactive media divide is kind of arbitrary, kind of.
I mean, like you said, a virtual novel is technically just a book with pictures
and choices.
Essentially, and choices. Well, I mean, there are books that have choices, like multi-choice adventure books do exist, right? Like it's not a concept that's exclusive to virtual novels, right? So again, it's like what you said. It's a very arbitrary distinction because you can get, picture books and other types of media that are
in that regard you can have, say, you can have a Song of Ice and Fire, or maybe if the title is that how you say the title. You can read that and not. I don't think you have any real life messages in that book. How good the story is.
It's a fantasy, and I mean you could take lessons from some of the events that happen, and you can take ideas, or you can empathize or agree with character motivations and that kind of thing. However, you don't. Again, I think the thing is I don't believe that people think that media doesn't influence people at all. I just think that the issue is that there are some people that believe that media has more of an influence in some cases than others, and that influence is wholeheartedly a negative or a positive.
Yeah, but my point against this text on screen is that you have games that are vastly have messages and themes that you grow to care about and take to heart, and you have games that is just a cookie clicker game.
Yeah, that doesn't have much going for it.
No, which has zero. It's very interactive. You do a lot of clicking, but it's narratively dead. It doesn't have any messages of all consuming consumption and for consumption's sake in Cookie Clicker maybe. Right. But so, that's kind of reaching.
I mean, it kind of goes into the idea that everything is political, and if you think hard enough, you can.
But of course, everything is political. Nothing is political. But in the same way, books also can have little to no meaning to a lot of meaning, And if I just take the Communist Manifesto, you can read it and you can say, well, damn, communism, not communism, capitalism is kind of a bad system. We should change to a more communist system. And that would have a profound impact on your life. More so than another book.
I think another thing to think about is that Mein Kampf and the Communist Manifesto are books that are in some way specifically designed to influence people. Right?
Yeah.
Like they are made with the intent to get people to agree with the ideas that are inside them. Right? It's not like Skyrim where it's like it might have the theme of everyone, having like all the sides having an equal amount of validity. However, that's not actually the main like objective within Skyrim. It's just something that is kind of tangential to it.
Yeah,
like
but
the main objective of Skyrim is to, beat Alduin and have fun adventures along the way. It's not necessarily like pushing that message, but you can take that message from it if you wanted. Whereas something like Mein Kampf and the Communist Manifesto are pieces of media that are specifically made. I guess propaganda is technically the right word, right? They're technically made to influence people to agree with the ideas.
Well, I here's Mein Kampf and the Communist Manifesto, and maybe I don't know the Hour of Furnaces. Maybe it's anti-fascist. I kind of assume that from the title. The Mein Kampf is, of course, a book about how one group of people are the cause of all society's ills, and the Communist Manifesto.
And I believe it's Mein Kampf is from the perspective of Hitler himself and his life story,
yeah,
and how he relates, because it's literally called my struggle, right? Like it's him going through his life and using that as an example and a springboard to show how these people are evil.
Yeah, the book, of course, like you said, it's like this group of people is evil and it happens to be the Jews. That's not on the same level of the Communist Manifesto, which isn't really, for one, it isn't the entirety of the communist ideas, it's just the simplified version for people to read and then say, fuck capitalism. Well, yeah, it's kind of the pamphlet you give out, and not really.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's the sales pitch, right? It's designed to influence, right? It's designed to get people to think about.
But
these things, right?
it's not Mein Kampf in that it blames, of course, a specific group of people who should be removed from that.
No, it criticizes the system rather than placing blame.
Yeah,
that would be a more apt way of putting it. And I believe that I think the other one is probably the fascist. It sounds like the fascist one,
or the anti-fascist.
I don't fucking know. Actually,
I assume anti-fascist. Our Furnaces. I don't think the fascists would say in the title of their book, the Hour of Furnaces, like it's a positive thing.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, so I would have to look it up.
So but I think all of those three, if I am right at least, Mein Kampf is like, those people are bad, maybe we should do something about it. Our Furnaces line is those fascists are bad, maybe we should do something about them. And the Communist
Manifesto is capitalism is bad, maybe we should do something about it.
Yeah, but this is of course man versus the system, and that's not
comparable. Yeah,
it's not comparable like Mein Kampf.
So we'll get. So the last point is probably because the mere angle of player interactivity is a meta that intentionally or unintentionally sterilizes violence. Citation needed for a start.
Yeah, that's pure speculation.
That is a statement that would require research and citation. That's not something that you could just like toss around like it's fucking candy. And the second point is that you can have people can get sterilized to violence from just viewing fucking violence, right?
I mean,
if you're living in a war,
let's use the ever popular Game of Thrones as an example where violence is constant and it's normal.
Yeah, and then you also have the like if you're in a fucking war zone and you're seeing violence all over the place, eventually it's going to become the norm, isn't it? Right? It's just what happens in day-to-day life. Someone gets shot in the street, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
you don't need media to sterilize people to violence, right?
But Grand Theft Auto is also a parody of American culture, so it's. I mean, I don't know if there's any piece of media that's a parody, which also, of course, which then would make people reenact it. Like, what parodies have the message of, and you should do this too?
Yeah, it's very weird. Again, since we're almost near the end of the video, right? Like, my issue with this is that he is using a lot of mental gymnastics and a lot of really weird arguments to try and
justification.
He's using a lot of really weird arguments to try and justify a really simple point, which is, I don't like these things.
Yeah.
Why do people like these things? It's not like it's complicated.
No, I don't think he really gave an argument. He didn't even bring up why incest is bad. He didn't bring up why incest or lolly are bad. He simply is just stating that he doesn't like them. And Konosuba is loud and annoying, which is
again a personal preference and
not
subjective.
Really related to why AnyTube is bad. Or why AnyTube sucks.
Well, it seems to be that it seems to be that they suck because to him they don't have his standards, right? They're not following his personal standards, therefore that makes them bad. Which is kind of stupid, to be honest. Because, I mean, I have my own personal standards, but I don't hold anyone else to my standards because that's stupid. You don't do that.
Yeah.
Alright,
should we finish up?
Let's finish up, and then we'll do some closing thoughts, and then we'll cap off the episode. So let's keep going.
Okay, you ready, Sasha? You're famous.
Oh, shut up. So there you go. There's my thoughts on AnyTube, the anime community, other communities, and just media in general, I guess. It's a bit different for a video than usual, and I don't anticipate making any more of these. I just felt like getting this off my chest before moving on to other stuff. If I missed anything, or you think I got something wrong, just let me know in the comments.
Or make a response
lot
video.
of the experience of watching Maid Dragon
is
for me was just this non-stop chain of things that I obsess over being brought to the forefront almost at random.
It's kind of a disingenuous thing to do.
Yeah, alright. So we're at the end now, so let's do some closing thoughts.
I don't like
first.
this. People, why do you like something that I don't like?
Yeah. You like something I don't like. Why you like thing I don't like? Big brain.
Stop liking what I don't like.
Yeah, it's kind of what this boils down to. And here's the thing. I actually wouldn't even have a problem with that if that was just what he said. If he just said, why do people like something that I find morally disgusting, I could at least be like, okay, well that's your subjective opinion. It's wrong and it's trash, but it's still your subjective opinion. But he's doing all of this crazy mental leaping and argumentations to try and justify his position.
I don't even think there was
He does. Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like there isn't really any argumentations. It's just,
Yeah, I don't think there's any really mental leaps anywhere because it's a constant stream of I don't like this, without any real argument, not even against the lolly stuff. Of this sexualizes children, real children, harm, etc.
It's almost like he's just expecting people to be on his side. It's almost like he believes that everyone already agrees with him.
Yeah, maybe he thinks people should just fall back to their own life experience viewpoints and suddenly agree with him. They break free of the shackles of the anime morals, and
they break free of Mother's basement.
Yeah, of Mother's basement's morals, and come back to their own natural morals, which are far superior to.
Which is weird because he's assuming that everyone has the same morals.
Kind of.
Which is kind of weird because morals very much differ from place to place, right? It's not...
Well, I can accept the fact that sexualizing children isn't really accepted in nearly all cultures.
Yeah.
And incest isn't really celebrated also a whole lot. So, besides those minor points, the main issue, he didn't give any real arguments against it, and we can make our own. We did a couple of times make our own.
Yeah.
But the issue is, it's his job to give arguments for why it's wrong, not us.
Yeah, he's the one that's meant to be, like what's the title? Why does AnyTube suck? Kobayashi, Konosuba, and corrupt standards, and it's like he doesn't actually say why they're corrupt standards. Why is it a corrupt standard that people like Konosuba when he doesn't? Well, like that's what I like. Again, like with the lolicon stuff, you could probably formulate some kind of argument that it's harmful, I don't like it, da 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 da. You could probably do that, but he doesn't.
Greater harm to society, but by perpetuating la la la.
But by perpetuating this, that. It might be wrong, and I disagree with that, but that would still be an argument. But he just says, lolly bad, Konosuba bad, incest bad, and then he makes a really interesting kind of contradiction almost, where he's like, well, I still enjoyed Oreimo, and the fact that Oreimo was playing against otaku kind of conventions and stuff, despite the incest in it, yet won't afford that same level of charity to another show, which I find very weird. Which I guess could be justified in that, of course, Kobayashi and Oreimo are two completely different shows with different humor and different subject matters and such. So I could understand that, but it's just a really weird kind of, okay, well, I'll give this show a pass despite it having a thing that I don't like in it, but I won't give this one a pass, in a sense.
Yeah, very and weird. I just looking at, I know, like I said, I don't have anything to do with AnyTube, which is kind of a lie I realized later.